समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
Then he will get a Nobel Prize.
It's not so easy to get a Nobel Prize, as you can see. Mr. Trump had tried very hard, but he couldn't succeed.
Germany is a big partner. On the high tech, I would mention Israel.
South Korea is playing a huge role in the military transformation of Europe. Israel is playing a huge role. So there are countries from other theaters that are playing a huge role.
In India, I know it from 20 years ago. It was not such a hard by Indian.
There were about 30 Indian companies that participated in the seminar. But they also said that many of them sort of had a feeling that the AOBP sort of can play a more visible role in supporting this engagement, etc.
Not in every case the produce in India or to buy European is the right way. Maybe the better way is to make it together.
The last 4 years alone, Indian exports to Czech Republic have gone up by 4 times.
We have to open how far the standards from Indian companies are comparable with the NATO standards.
What would be your message to the Indian defense companies that are watching you?
Don't be afraid to come Czech Republic.
So welcome to the WorldView with Swasti. Today I'm in Prague, which is the capital of the Czech Republic, and with me is Mr. Michal Hon, who is the Vice President for Cooperation and Trade at the Association of Defense and Security Industry of the Czech Republic, which is also known as AOBP. Mr. Hon is also the President and member of MESIT Holding, a leading Czech technology company with more than 70 years of experience in developing and producing advanced systems and electronic components for aviation and defense. And what a great time to actually meet you, Mr. Hon. Thank you for agreeing to speak to us.
Swasti, thank you for the invitation.
And what a great time to be speaking to you, because as I'm here in the Czech Republic and in Prague, India and the Czech Republic have just had the 7th Joint Defense Committee meeting on the 7th of October, and this happened after 5 years of gap. So broadly, first tell the viewers about what really is this association and what role do you do?
Yeah, our association has more than 250 members. They are active in the military industry or defense industry and security industry. And our goal is to support these companies to open the door to the world and to open the door to the Czech Republic for the foreign companies from abroad.
Right, that's interesting. So do you have only the AOBP active in the Czech Republic, or do you have many such platforms that work together? So just because the Indian viewers have little understanding of how the defense industry ecosystem here works.
Actually, this is the only the association for this kind of industry in Czech Republic. We have, of course, some membership in other kinds of organization, like is a business chamber or something like that. But the association is the only one in Czech Republic.
Right, so that's interesting. And you know what is, when you speak to Indians about the Czech Republic, there are basically 2 images that are most pronounced. One, of course, are the Tatras. And of course, I would request you to tell the Indians about Tatras, because we've been buyers of Tatras for a very, very long time. And then the small arms, because small arms is something that you sort of really dominate. So could you just tell us about both these strong points that you have, and then we build it on?
Of course, the Tatras and the small arms are well-known companies with old tradition going to the beginning of the 20th century, I would say. But beside that, the Czech defense industry has a lot of other very interesting kinds of industry. Talking about aircraft for training and transportation, electronic warfare, radar technology, special chemical analysis equipment, and others.
All right. And I also sort of, in the last 4 years alone, especially after the Russia-Ukraine war, I also see that the Czech companies, because when I was going to speak to you, of course, I was just reading up a lot and I was speaking to experts who are working on the Czech defense industry. So the niche capabilities that you have developed, particularly in the field of radars, drones, anti-drones warfare, and also electronic warfare. I mean, that has also been immense. So do you think that going further in future, this is where you're looking for more foreign ventures? I mean, how do we understand?
Definitely, if we are discussing about drones and anti-drone systems, this is something which growth in the last few years, especially. But even this kind of industry has a long tradition, which is connected with the radar and passive radar systems in Czech Republic or in Czechoslovakia. Interesting is that the drone industry was known only from, let's say, Israel or France or US, from these big countries with a huge military industry. But I think that even Czech Republic has a very interesting development in the last few years in that field.
So I would also like to now ask you a little bit about this particular joint committee that we just had on the 7th of October, which also saw a seminar. And in that seminar, a good number of Indian companies were present. So I heard from many in the establishment that there were about 30 Indian companies that participated in the seminar. But they also said that many of them sort of had a feeling that the AOBP sort of can play a more visible role in supporting this engagement, etc. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, maybe we will have to improve our activities. We think that we are supporting, as I told you, the Czech and foreign companies to find the common way. We are very active on the exhibitions. One of them was this year in Brno. It's the exhibition IDET. Then we have also in the autumn here in Prague another military exhibition. And so far I know the foreign companies are invited. And of course the common way, even with the Indian companies, is only a question of open discussion and defining the business possibilities.
Okay. Right. Now, as you know that India is also sort of making several changes in the manner in which we do our military procurement. So, for example, there are certain Make in India initiatives that we want to support. Now, I'm sure you understand it very well, because right now, if you look at what is happening in Europe, is that one of the key slogans in Europe is "Buy European." So in that situation, but having said that, I also work on the theater, so I'm aware that all your security needs are not going to come from Europe. So you have to look at other players, and I know that for sure South Korea is playing a huge role in the military transformation of Europe. Israel is playing a huge role. So there are countries from other theaters that are playing a huge role. In that respect, how would you sort of evaluate that? What has been the strong points of those relationships that we can also emulate?
Of course, there is the clear definition by European, and you are completely right that even big countries like France, Germany cannot produce everything. And this is the field where we can start to cooperate, or where we have to try it. On the other hand, the other problem is in India, I know it from 20 years ago, it was not such a hard buy Indian or produce in India. But sometimes this is some limitation for the cooperation in Europe, but also in India. And we have to try to open eyes to our politicians, maybe, that not in every case the produce in India or to buy European is the right way. Maybe the better way is to make it together. And this is the
Absolutely.
example you are calling Korea, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, Korea is a huge investor in Europe, not only in car industry, but also you know about the nuclear power station,
Yeah.
which Korea will build in Czech Republic. And of course, these are the points. They are opening the doors.
All right. So when you talk about opening doors, now, Michael, of course, on the one hand, I know that as far as advanced platforms are concerned, there is a limitation right now, you know, in terms of what India can offer. The only theater where India is actually selling advanced weapons that are indigenous is basically Armenia. And that has a different context as to why that is happening. But having said that, I think our weapons have worked very well in Armenia, and that makes a very strong case for India. Now, when we look at Czech Republic. Now, I know for sure that in the last 4 years alone, Indian exports to Czech Republic have gone up by 4 times. But if you look into the category of what those exports are, you will see 155 ammunition shells, you will see, you know, a lot of secondary equipment, etc., etc. How do we sort of take this to something which is more tangible, you know, something which is, you know, goes to maybe say joint ventures and co-production of drones, etc., etc. How do we cross that hurdle?
This is a good question. If somebody would have the clear way, then he will get a Nobel Prize.
It's not so easy to get a Nobel Prize, as you can see. Mr. Trump had tried very hard, but he couldn't succeed.
But I think we have to try it again. And such issues like was the last week common committee between Indian MOD and Czech MOD is also opening the door. So we have to try, and we will go to India for big exhibitions, and we will invite Indian companies to come to Europe and to Czech Republic especially.
And a related question there, Michael, is that what do you think is a better pathway for that? You know, there are certain countries where the G2G procurement works very well, and this particularly in the case of France, you know, we see the G2G route works very well. Others, there are B2B routes. And now I know that in the most recent seminar that followed this joint working committee on defense, I know that there were Indian DPSUs, which are the defense public sector units, as well as the private players. So from your ecosystem, what do you think is a better way to take this conversation forward? Do you think that the G2G level is good, or do you think it's the B2B, or those are
I think it's necessary to combine both.
Okay.
In a big project, you need definitely G2G.
Okay.
And in small activities, in the niches you mentioned, the private activity is something what you never can achieve with government to government.
Right. And also, I know that, you know, there is a company here, UAS, that is now discussing drone, you know, production with a Chennai-based company. Similarly, Primoco, which is another Czech company, is now in talks with some other Indian companies. So there are talks which are happening. But in order to sort of really push it to have tangible results, I think we need to do a lot of homework, you know, both sides.
Yeah, I know a company, Primoco. This is a very fine company. I was when their idea with UAVs have been born. And I think they are doing well their job.
Okay.
And they are expanding really very good, and they have no fear to target new markets.
Right. Are you also aware, Michael, of the defense industrial corridors that we have in India, which are special MOD programs or special MOD projects to attract not just investments, but also joint ventures to India? And the idea is not just to make in India for India, but to make in India for the world, because it is cheaper. The labor is cheaper. We get better, you know, tax incentives, etc. Are you aware of that? I'm asking this question because a lot of times when I travel across Europe, I'm quite surprised that, you know, a lot of European partners do not know about such things in India.
Maybe it's not enough. We have maybe not enough information about that. Okay. On the other hand, we know about such activities, and some of our companies are using that.
Right. Can we also talk a little bit more about what you think are the key challenges? I mean, if people in India are watching this, and if this is meant to sort of help better defense industry collaboration, how do you list the challenges, not particularly with respect to India, but with respect to how do you see the challenges for the Czech defense industry, and then of course we ask a question on India.
Of course, Czech defense industry has a big changes in these years, connecting with the political situation in Europe, not only. And there are many changes. And without the cooperation with such countries like India, we probably will not achieve our goals. So this is one of the changes. And what is also necessary to say is that the defense industry in the past was something not very popular, let's say, in our country.
Okay.
And this is also changing very, very rapidly.
Now, you mentioned here something very interesting. You said that without cooperation with countries like India, you will not be able to achieve the objectives you set out. Could you also help us understand how can we sort of further it? Because it's one thing to say that India has a particular role, but how can we sort of translate it? What do you expect from Indian companies?
Maybe to be more open for the cooperation in Europe. I think that because India is such a big market, that maybe sometimes we can feel that the Indian companies are focused very for the Indian market and not for Europe, which is far away.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned this, Michael, because one of the stated goals of the Indian MOD has been to also make this transition from a net weapons importer to a net weapons exporter. And in the last few years, we have been sort of really doubling down on our export efforts. In fact, India's largest export destination when it comes to defense equipment is the United States, and the second is France. And then, of course, like I said, that in 4 years, we have been exporting so much to the Czech Republic as well. Is the problem also got somewhere to do with the fact that you would like to have an ecosystem which is, NATO interoperable, the standards? Do you think that also comes in the way?
You mentioned the NATO standards. Of course, NATO standards is something which is very, very tough for a lot of companies. And coming back, for example, for the ammunition, I know that there are some troubles with to deliver really ammunition which is following the very strict NATO standards.
Okay.
So maybe this could be also one of the questions we have to open: how far the standards from Indian companies are comparable with the NATO standards.
Okay, so standardization, of course, is one thing. Okay, please help me understand and educate our viewers also. Who are your biggest defense partners?
If you look on the map, you will see that Czech Republic is very close to Germany. The biggest investor in Czech Republic is Germany. And also with the changing political status of Germany in the military field, I would say that Germany is the biggest partner today. So they have big companies. They are no more maybe today German, but they are German, French, and so on and so on. So I would say Germany is a big partner. On the high tech, I would mention Israel.
Okay.
You know about the very special relationship between the Czech Republic and Israel in Europe, but also other.
But why don't you tell our viewers about that special relationship a bit? Because of course Israel is a big, very huge partner to us also.
Israel is one of the best developed countries regarding the high-end military equipment because of the tradition, and because Czechoslovakia in 1948 was a big partner of Israel. This tradition is going till today.
Okay. Right. So what exactly, when you said that Israel is, when it comes to high tech, so what kind of equipment are you buying from Israel?
Okay, one of the very typical stuff is the anti-aircraft missile, or especially the missile technology. Or we talked about the drones, anti-drone systems, all this stuff.
Right. So on that note, what would be your message to the Indian defense companies that are watching you?
Don't be afraid to come Czech Republic.
Okay.
Knock the door, not only on the small companies, but also to the big companies. We have 3-4 big, really international groups in Czech hands, and come to us.
Okay, on that note, Mr. Michal Hon, I have to thank you for taking the time out and speaking to me for the WorldView with Swasti. And I really hope that our two countries can come together in a way which can create a mutual win-win for both our countries. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you also, and have a nice time here in Prague, and all the best to our Indian partners and friends.
Thank you so much.